Good morning, friends. I think I'm one of the speakers you have to bear twice in next half an hour. So let me start. I've been hearing my friends here about total cost management. So I know you have a very, very intense agenda for 2 days. So I will be more macro because I know that there are enough experts in this room to talk about the subject, and we'll talk a little more after this break. But when we see the economy today, one thing is true, that the economy is going to grow. There can only be a question whether it is going to be 8%, 7.5%, 7%, 6.5%, but we are growing. There is no doubt about it. And the second thing is that there is a very strong intention of central government to grow things. And all of us are largely coming from manufacturing background, manufacturing industry. And India has to generate 100 million jobs. And that cannot happen without manufacturing industry. And the industry I come from, which is automotive, 47% of the manufacturing GDP of this country is automotive and automotive related. So when I see the intention of the government, it's very, very clear that we have to create jobs, because that's the social responsibility also of the government. And that is why there's a lot of focus there on manufacturing. Sometimes we say that, we have great labor cost, versus other, and we are competitive. But I don't think that in this country we can take labor cost as a competitive advantage. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to be in a brainstorming session with the Vice Chairman and CEO of Niti Aayog, and the government is very positive, and they were taking some inputs on what should we do to create more jobs. So, creation of employment zones, which is very important, because when we see here, we call Chennai as Detroit of India. Almost 30% of the cars get manufactured here. It's a big place, but we are still far away from the countries, where we really want to compete with. If I just give one example, cost management, yes, it is important, but I think cost management to me, is not just a process, but it's an ecosystem. And we'll talk more about that in the break. But when we see some examples in the world, and manufacturing, so today all of us know China is way, way ahead in terms of manufacturing versus India. And even in China, if we see just one province, let's say we take Shenzhen, that country, that city, had a population of only 3 lakh people in 90s, only 3 lakh. Today, that city has a population of 12 million people, and that city's GDP is $256 billion US. So they had created not economic zones, but employment zone, manufacturing zone, and all that they were able to do by being competitive. And I think that's a clear challenge for all of us. But as I was seeing, the agenda of this conference, how can we be more competitive? And TCM is the mantra for these turbulent times. When I see for India, I think these are the opportunity time for us. At least till now, in what I have seen is that really true, you can say TCM or innovation is our own mission to Mars. Can anybody compete with us on that cost today? I don't think so, anyone. So what the other speakers were just mentioning, learning and innovation, I think that's the way forward. But for all of us as professionals, we have a huge opportunity to grow in this environment. Because today when we see exports of this country, what are we, 300 billion US dollar? That's it. Nothing when we see China, which is into trillions of dollars. So I think For manufacturing industry, if we have to grow, I think government's social agenda is how to create 100 million jobs. Our agenda is how we can grow and invest more. But I think all that can only happen if we are competitive. If we are not competitive, I don't think that India will be in the race, because we are already seeing a lot of countries catching up on this side. So I think we have to create some examples within India and there are certain industries, which have already created those examples. But I think on an overall basis, the expectation with manufacturing is much, much higher. And I think all of us have a role to play and to contribute in that. And I'm sure that that in next 2 days, you will have specific sessions to address a lot of issues which are there in this overall ecosystem. And we will have a more opportunity. At least I will share what is my view of total cost management and how do I see that in the coming times, sharing my own experience with you. But clearly, I think this is the way forward, and these are the forums and opportunities which are very, very important. And one thing I can also share, Mr. Bali is he's a very prominent member in CII, and also he's heading the Cost Congress, that today there's a very strong intention on the government side, the kind of engagement we are having on a regular basis. And I think each one of you have to contribute towards that. You have to come with innovative ideas, which is very, very important. And I think all of us together can make the difference. It's not individually us, but I think everyone in the room can make this difference. And I think it would be very interesting, Mr. Bali, that once we conclude these 2 days, if we have some ideas as a synopsis, which we can share with the right people in the government, I think that would be very, very appropriate to do that. So I won't take much time, and I will be back after the break, and at least I'll share more on my thoughts on TCM. So thank you once again, and thank you for inviting me.